Yo, welcome and welcome back to the Fantasy Fixers podcast, and I'm your host, Winston Wolf, and I fix problems. I know, where have I been? Sometimes life gets in the way between work, kids, wife, home, homework. Common Core Math has given me all I can handle. I just hired a tutor for my kid's tutor so he could teach him Common Core. Common Core Math is like teaching your kid Chinese language when the only Chinese terms you know came from Rush Hour 3. Slow down, baby. It's that difficult. Now, that's not what you're here for. I don't always make videos, but I'm always answering questions on the Fantasy Fixers Facebook page. I answer all questions. I'm the only person in fantasy, I have to say person, because I'm not an expert. The only advisor in fantasy that would show you what my teams are doing because I have that much confidence in my teams and knowledge as a fantasy football therapist. The reason I feel so compelled to do this video is because fantasy playoffs are quickly approaching, and I have a mini cult, a small fan base that may need some advice on things that they're not necessarily thinking about. Let's get into the top 10 tips and tricks that will help you win your fantasy football championships. Number 1, stash, and stash again. Now, I don't handcuff because I don't love them. But the second reason I don't handcuff is because it's not a lot of guys that are out there that are valuable enough to be number 2 running backs that could just fill the void of the number 1. Hence, A.J. Dillon. But if you look at the Jonathan Taylor situation, it's grim for any owner who doesn't have Zach Moss. Because it honestly makes no sense for Jonathan Taylor to come back this season, but that's a discussion for another time. So stash viable number 2 running backs. Number 2, stash guys from the Thursday, Sunday, and Monday night games. Now, this is for Yahoo formats. Not sure about other platforms. For instance, the Cowboys will be playing the Seahawks on the Thursday night. If you have a bench spot that you can afford to lose, then you should pick up Rico Dowdle. If Tony Pollard doesn't get hurt in this game, you drop Dowdle on Friday. For the Monday night game, I would pick up D'Ernest Johnson just to make sure ETN makes it out without injury. And if the RB1 makes it out unscathed, you drop him like you're dropping your last name after marrying a billionaire. My name would be Winston Oprah Winfrey.
Oh,
Dave, it's Oprah.
oh. Hey, what's up, girl?
Look, Dave, I'm pregnant.
Are you sure it's mine?
For number 3, prepare for weather. Now, it's nothing you can do if you're a Stephon Diggs owner and he's playing at home and it's a blistering snow everywhere. He got you this far, so you just have to roll with him like a big wheel. But I do try to take a kicker that is playing in a dome or in nice weather, especially if he's part of a good offense. My go-to this year is Jason Sanders of the Miami Dolphins. 2 of the 3 fantasy playoff games are at home. If it's a kick that's 50 yards or more, teams don't even try to attempt it if they're snowing like crazy. So that's why I just try to avoid that situation. And when worrying about inclement weather, you have to account for wind. The wind speed in a normal NFL game in a dome is around 7 miles per hour. So take that in consideration when checking wind speeds before games. Not just snow and not just rain. Because I wouldn't drop Harrison Butker, but if he's in a game with 20 miles per hour winds, then I'm subbing him out like a kid that just missed 8 straight 3-pointers. Number 4, drop the excess weight. No, I'm not talking about working out. If you have Nick Chubb or Kirk Cousins in your IR spot, get rid of them. You're doing it wrong. I know this is going to sound silly to most of you guys who've been playing fantasy football since players have had leather helmets. But there's a lot of newbies out there that will have these guys on their IR with season-ending injuries. For one, they're not coming back this season. And for the most important reason, if you end up in a situation with a tie score, then the platform might use bench points to determine the winner. Do you understand how mad you will be if you lose because J.K. Dobbins is on your bench instead of Tim Boyle? With that being said, find out the tie-breaking system because bench points may just be it. Tip number 5, if you can go without a waiver move, do so. Now, this is prior to the playoffs because you want to be as high in the waiver order as you possibly can in case an injury happens. For instance, every Zach Moss owner is rejoicing right now like a kid who found out his mama just broke up with a boyfriend that he didn't like. And being high in the waiver is critical during these last few weeks to land a possible league winner. A few years ago, I picked up Tony Pollard in week 14 because Zeke Elliott was hurt in the game prior. And as you can see, he was the only reason I won this matchup against Magneto. That's my nemesis, so that's what I call him. Tip number 6, your best offense is your defense. Now, this is true for regular season and fantasy playoffs, but I'm facing my partner, Bailey, in a matchup, and I noticed he had Ken Walker in his starting lineup. This was Saturday. Before he had the doubtful tag. All right, me knowing that guys don't come back from oblique injuries in a week, I grabbed Zach Charbonnet off the waiver wire. So now he has to play Rico Dowdle. I'll take my chances facing Rico, who might have 4 touches, rather than Charbonnet, who would have the entire backfield to himself. Tip 7, grab an extra QB. With the fantasy football playoffs looming, you want to have options. Don't get rid of the side chicks until you're 100% married, not just engaged. But it's going to be QBs in bad matchups and bad weather, so you need to be able to pivot like the podcast when problems arise. Be a master of manipulation. The waiver can be manipulated. If you find yourself in a pickle where you have to drop a player and your bench has players ready to drop 20 points at a moment's notice, don't drop that player until Saturday or Sunday. That way your opponent can't pick him up. Nothing stings more than losing to a player that you dropped. Tip number 9, grab 2 if you can. Not women, but defenses. During the regular season, I would never take this approach, but we're in the season of one and done, and you have to maximize your teams in every possible way. So I'm looking at the defenses way ahead of time that play in week 14 and 15. Now, if you're in a bye, don't even care about who your week 14 defense is. You need to be focused on week 15 in preparation. It's all about staying 2 steps ahead of the masses. Tip number 10, which is the final tip. It's okay to be the bad guy. I'm Thanos, Ric Flair, or the snow-covered steps that Meek Mill slipped on. I love being a super villain. In doing so, you have to pay close attention to your league mates. If I can keep a team out of the playoffs that are red hot, then I am doing it. A few years back, one of my nemesis was in the 7th spot with 1 game to go, and he needed me to beat the 6th seed for him to get in the playoffs. His team was on a 4-game win streak, and he was scoring almost 200 a game. His team might as well have been the Monstars or the 72 Dolphins. They were so hot that he changed his name to Michael Jackson's hair during the Pepsi commercial. I knew if he made it into the playoffs that he was going to beat everyone, and it wasn't questionable. It would have looked like the kids that faces the mascots during the halftime show. So I put the absolute worst possible lineup I could put in the game. Al Bundy was my QB, and I simply forgot to set my lineup. I was so busy that week. Magneto blew out his opponent. I lost my match, which prevented him from getting into the playoffs. He kept scoring 200 in the consolation rounds, and I went to grab the ship. Now, he didn't talk to me for about 3 years. It had a little friction between our relationship. But a win is a win, and you're all about the dub, so that's why you're here. In conclusion, these are the top 10 tips and tricks that can be utilized to win that ship. If you have any additional questions or concerns, feel free to drop them in the comment section, and I will answer. Go grab that money. Go grab that championship. You earned it.